Hello, my name is Oliver. You probably don't know me because I have 30 subscribers or videos and I'm not famous. But with the new resurgence of Stranger Things, because season 4 has just come out, or not just came out like a month ago, everyone's been kind of talking about it again. And I love Will Byers so much, so I bought this book. I don't know if you can see. It is the Will Byers Secret Files, because I love Will Byers. He's my favorite character of all time, probably. I found it for like $10 on eBay. It was used because I found out that, like, as soon as I was gonna buy this book, I found out they weren't in production anymore. So, just getting it used. Also, before I get into this review, just know that Volume 2 hasn't come out yet at the time that I'm filming this. If I say anything where you're like, that's actually incorrect, or like, I don't know what I'd say. I just want to say that, like, Volume 2 hasn't come out yet. Season 5 has definitely not come out yet. I just wanted to talk about this book because there were some things that were just so funny to me that I just had to point things out. So before I get into my criticisms, I just want to say that personally, I like this book. This is a good book. It's fun. It looks into the creative side of Will Byers when he's not literally being tormented by the Upside Down or the Mind Flayer or being gay. Like, it's a fun look into Will's personality and creative side that you don't get to see in the show because he's literally so traumatized. But there are some things about this book that are just, like, so confusing and just, like, weird and funny that I just wanted to point out because I think it would make for good content. Like, this is a good buy for $10 to $15. I ended up, with shipping, paying like $15 for it. It was originally sold in the US for about $17, which is maybe a little pricey, but, like, it's Stranger Things, so it's gonna be pricey, and it's fine. Like, that's a good price for it. So this isn't meant to be, like, a hit piece on this book. This is just me pointing out funny stuff. My first criticism of the book is not at all important to the narrative that this book is trying to drive home. It's just kind of something I see with children that are portrayed as artists in shows. Like, Will is the artistic character of Stranger Things. If this is like an extension of Will's character, there's going to be a lot of drawings in this book. However, some of the art concepts in his drawings in this book are just so complicated for a 13-year-old to know. Like, okay, take, for example, this picture of Bob that he draws, and it's in the show, too. Like, the anatomy is really good, and the perspective that Will uses is just, like, so advanced and, like, a concept that a 13-year-old couldn't really conceptualize, if you get what I'm saying. I considered myself an artist, and at his age, I had no idea how perspective in this way worked, you know? There are some crayon drawings that are, like, just fine, and, like, you'd expect that of a 13-year-old who was better at art. But, like, then you flip the page and you see this, like, pencil drawing of a bird, and you're like, holy shit, this kid is a professional artist. Stuff like this happens a lot in media where children are portrayed as really good artists for their age, even if it's, like, not realistic. Because obviously, these drawings in the book were drawn by a professional artist. It's hard to, like, turn that off when you're an artist, I guess. They don't really realize, I guess, or, like, at the time they don't realize that maybe a kid wouldn't understand this concept, or not even just understand, like, be able to conceptualize what technique they're using in their art, that kind of thing. I don't know, it doesn't really relate at all to the book. I just felt the need to point it out because there were some drawings that I saw in here and I was like, holy shit. We're getting into the real criticisms now. So my first real criticism of this book is something that could have been completely avoided in the first place if they didn't write what they did on the back of the book. Like, all that this book needed to be satisfactory to Stranger Things fans is to just be an extension of Will's character and add some, like, interesting content that hasn't already been shown in the series, or, like, dive more into the content that was shown in the series. It's the only box that this book needed to fill. Like, my expectations for what this book was going to be, or like what this book needed to be, was so low, and somehow it's still like confusing as hell. The book itself is like not boring. Like, it has content in it that is new and interesting to like any Stranger Things fan who like might pick up this book and read it for the sake of like, it's Stranger Things and I like Stranger Things and I want to read it. So on the back, like I previously stated, is like a little synopsis, and basically like Will introduces himself, and then for some reason he like introduces a purpose for this book. The only box you needed to fill for this book was to be interesting and to expand on Will's character, but no, we are adding more boxes to fill for this book, I guess. So, the back reads, "The last 2 years in Hawkins have been so strange that I barely believe it all myself. It's hard to know what's real and what's not. This is why I have to write everything down and collect as much evidence as possible. Inside this binder are my diaries, drawings, and notes about what I saw in the Upside Down, and information the government doesn't want you to see. It's the only true record of how my friends and family stuck together and survived some dark and terrible forces. Open at your own risk, from Will Byers." So the concept that this book is trying to create is a good concept, like having a sort of like, I don't know, like behind the scenes footage for what Will went through in the Upside Down is not a bad idea. Good concept. I hope they follow through on the concept. Adding to the fact that it's a good concept, like, it's not out of character for Will to have wanted to write something like this. Like, he is a very intuitive person, and I can definitely see him in the show having a binder filled with his experiences. But there are some things in this binder that just have no relation to the purpose that they set up on the back of the page at all, and it is so hilarious. Like, it's just so confusing where you're reading this and you're like, why is this in the book? Like, why am I reading this? Like, where did this come from? That's my main thing, is that, like, why couldn't this have just been, like, a fun sketchbook from Will? Like, why did this have to be, like, these are my experiences in the Upside Down? Like, why do we do this? I feel like adding an additional purpose for this book just convolutes the story. And it's not like I'm being nitpicky here, or, like, maybe I am being nitpicky here, and people are... Well, not that I don't think anybody's going to see this video, but people are going to comment and be like, I didn't think this one reading the story at all. When I sat down and read this for the first time, looked through it, there's not a lot to read here because it's just a lot of drawings. I was like, but why is this in this book? Like, why? Like, I just read the back, and what is this? I'm not saying that none of the content in this book is about Will's experience in the Upside Down, but a lot of the content in this book is just like little notes from his friends that have nothing to do with the Upside Down, or like there's just one like diary-esque entry from Will about school being out and how he didn't like the school year. Included in the book are like 2 random pages about Bob, which also feel very out of place. Bob was such, like, at the time, he was a great character, but in the general purpose of the story of Stranger Things, he is such an insignificant character. I'm pretty sure that this was written when Season 3 came out, or a little bit before Season 3 came out, because it doesn't really touch on a lot of the things from Stranger Things 3, but I don't get why the writers felt a need to have 2 separate pages about Bob on here. One of them is, like, the drawing of Bob, so, like, doesn't even relate to, like, anything else in the story. The other page is literally just a page from Bob, so like before he died, of a picture of like the clown he was afraid of, or like an article clipping talking about the clown he was afraid of, and he was like, look, I wasn't lying about that clown. I didn't think you were lying about that clown. I don't think anyone thought that you were lying about that clown, but like, okay. And then he's like, remember to confront your fears. That was the worst mistake Will made in season 2, was not running from the monster. So why did they keep this in the book if it was famously some of the worst advice that any Stranger Things character has given to another character? Like, the advice was generally good, like, don't run from your fears, but in the context of the story, it was not good advice. I think the funniest thing that was just, like, so out of place in this book was, like, a 4-paged short story written by Will, which I'm like, do what you want, Will, be creative, love you, sort of thing. But, like, why did they put it in this book? It's not even like the story was a metaphor for what he went through in the Upside Down. It's just like a short story about supposedly their D&D character, like the party's D&D characters. Like, another odd sort of like plot hole, I guess, thing that I noticed about the story is that the main character is a wizard. I'm guessing it's supposed to be from Will's D&D's character's perspective. But Will isn't a wizard, he's a cleric. This is just me being nerdy at this point. It's probably only like 1 or 2 times that they mention this, but Will was the cleric of the group. Like, that was his specific title that they gave him in terms of D&D characters. Like, I'm guessing this was just some sort of writing mistake that I just thought was funny as, like, a big fan of the show being like, why the hell is this in here? For all of you guys who are like, oh, it's probably not Will's character then. I don't think so, because in the story, it, like, directly references the first episode in which Will's friends are pressuring him to either cast a fireball or protect the group. And, like, I get that people have multiple D&D characters. Like, this could very well just be, like, a separate D&D character that Will made. But, like, it doesn't feel that way when you're reading it. You're like, oh, so this is Will's character being a hero. Yeah, I see it. And even in the story, there's a separate cleric that they mention in the party. The cleric has such a minuscule role in the story. It, like, never comes back. It is so funny. The story was fine. Like, it was just, like, kind of in there. Like, it didn't really add anything to Stranger Things or to Will's character, rather than I guess he likes to write. The decision to put the short story in here is, like, so funny, because they must have had, like, literally no ideas for, like, what to fill these 4 pages with. They're like, ah, shit, what do I do with these 4 pages? What do I do with these 4 pages? Oh, what the hell? What do I do? A short story that has nothing to do with Stranger Things, written by Will, but we get the D&D character wrong. What the hell? You know, I just... Okay. Like, I guess what the writers of this book, or the writer, I think it was only written by one guy, but, like, the team, because this is Stranger Things, so the team obviously had to work on this project, didn't understand is that you can sell a book and make a book about Will Byers that doesn't relate to the Upside Down. It could have just been like a random composition book that Will wrote, or like this is like a fake binder. It could have just been like a little binder where Will keeps a bunch of shit, you know? But like instead, you like read the back of this book and you expect to hear all these stories about what Will went through in the Upside Down and what it was like being infected by the Mind Flayer, and like you get a couple pages, like maybe a half or a little under half of these pages relate to that, but then you just get this random content that feels out of place, and while you're reading it, you're like, okay, you know? Just reading this and like the way that it was marketed, like it feels like they felt that they weren't going to get any sales if this didn't relate to the Upside Down or, you know, just like that kind of story, and that is not the case at all. Like, there's enough people who love Stranger Things and enough people who literally love Will with all their heart. Oh, damn it. I love you, Will. I love you. I'm sorry, that's so cringy. There's enough dedicated fans of Stranger Things, and there's enough people who love Will so much that this book will get sales regardless. Or, like, a book similar to this with, like, a different concept will get enough sales to be profitable. You know, there's a group of people who'd be more than happy to just purchase random Stranger Things content book, even if it doesn't add anything to the story and it just expands the character. I'm just saying, The writers didn't need to make this the Secret Files. They probably just could have gotten the same amount of nostalgia sales if they made Will Byers Journal #2 or something, like, and they just used like an old composition book look and then filled it with Will Byers drawings. That's really all I have to say on this book. Even with the weird plot holes, this book is well made, and I would recommend it to anyone who likes Stranger Things, especially if they like Will. I just thought it would be funny to point out the mistakes in this video. Yeah. Alright. See ya.